Hello everyone, welcome to SDN Bit. In this channel, I share network automation and programmability content, and in today's video, we will be talking about Cisco DNA Center. So let's get started by opening up developer.cisco.com. This website has been created by Cisco in order to allow engineers and developers to test, build, and try their code with REST API interaction and with also other SDN concepts. But we will use it primarily for REST API usage and exploration, if you will. So if you are new to this website, I encourage you to go to the Learn section and start doing some learning labs. You can watch at some video courses. And if you press the Start Now, it will tell you where to begin to learn, and it will give you recommendations. So if you do not have any experience with REST APIs and with Cisco platforms in general, I highly encourage you to use this button and start learning. But in our case, we will work with Cisco DNA Center APIs, and since it's expensive to obtain DNA Center platform license, I will use a concept called Sandbox, which is a free hosted environment for integrating and working with Cisco technology. And this Sandbox environment will allow me to work with DNA Center in a lab kind of environment, because technically it's a lab. We are not using an original, like a production DNA Center. So in this section, you will see that you can browse labs on Sandbox by category, as you can see here. So, and you can also reserve some labs. So we have two types of labs based on their availability. We have always on, meaning they are always available. You can access them whenever you want. And we have regular, which demand reservation. As you can see, some labs, they have reserve button here. So you have to reserve it, and you might be required to obtain any Connect VPN client to connect to the environment, which will allow you to work with this kind of labs. But in our case, we will just use Cisco's always on DNA Center Sandbox. So we have it here, as you can see, always on Lab 1 and Lab 2. So let's start with Lab 1. I'm just gonna press on Lab 1 Sandbox, and it will come up with a screen which has the topology of Sandbox Lab and a little bit of information and instructions about how to connect and how to use the DNA Center. DNA Center, as you can see here, also is a centralized management application for the network. DNA Center provides a single pane of management to design, provision, enable policy, and assure network services with full visibility of user and device identity, operating systems, and applications across the entire network fabric. So basically, DNA Center is a proprietary tool developed by Cisco, which allows us to manage entire infrastructure from the single point, from the single pane of glass. So, and as you can see, we have the Sandbox access section down here. So just scroll down and you can follow these instructions to connect to the Sandbox. As you can see, the first step is go to this website. Well, basically we don't have to go because we'll interact with DNA Center with APIs, but for the sake of video, I'm gonna open this up. And after you open this link, you will be required to enter credentials. And credentials are indicated right here. So this is the username, DevNet user, and this is the password. I have already entered them earlier, so that's why it will not ask me to enter them again. As you can see, I'm already welcomed. And you could use this Explorer button, and it will take you to a tour of DNA Center where you can understand the GUI concepts. As you can see, we have a lot of dashboards which provide us statistical and operational data. And yeah. So in our case, we will construct APIs. We will start by using Postman because it's the easiest way to start. And then we will advance using other tools such as Python in order to interact with Cisco DNA Center via APIs. So with any Cisco platform, or maybe with any SDN platform, if you want to start using APIs and interacting with the device, with the platform, the best way, the best source of truth to learn and utilize them is API documentation, official API guide, and you can find it in case of Cisco platforms in the help section. So just press onto this question mark and you will get a API reference link. So I'm just going to open up this page, as you can see, and yeah, as you can see, we have a lot of information about the API. In our case, we are using, if I'm not mistaken, 233 So let me just verify that. I think, yeah. So we use 2335, meaning we have to come and find this particular API reference for version 2333. Okay. And I'm going to press next. Okay. As you can see, we have a page which has a documentation, which consists of documentation of API requests that we can issue in order to interact with our DNA Center platform. So in order to execute these requests, I am going to start by using Postman. So let's open up Postman on a different tab, postman.com. You can use your existing Google account if you want to sign up faster. I have already signed up to the Postman, and let's build our first API request. So as you can see, the first API in this particular section is import certificate, but we don't really need to do that because we're not a production environment. We're just testing out the lab environment. And as you can see, we have an operation ID, which is a unique ID that is basically the name of the object, of this API object, which is import certificate. And then we have a description which describes this particular API call, which is, as you can see, this method is used to upload a certificate. And because we're uploading the certificate, we are using a post request. So a little bit about these requests, right? What does post mean? What does get mean? Why we have this kind of request? So those are called basically HTTP verbs. And if you search for them, you can get a lot of information, but I will try to give you a brief information about them. And as you can see, we have a bunch of pictures. So let's try this one maybe. Post, put, I'm looking for a patch also. So we have detailed information maybe. Okay, this one is pretty good. So as you can see, HTTP methods and their meaning. The get method is a HTTP verb, HTTP method, which we use to read data. A post is used to insert data, meaning to create something new on the web page, let's say. Put or patch is something that we need to update data or insert new data or merge, right? And delete is to basically remove the data. So basically, you will see how it works precisely when we apply these operations on our DNA Center platform. Don't worry about that. And for now, just you can use this picture as a reference. So get is if you want to retrieve some information, let's say from the server. Post, if we use post if we want to create something on the server, some new object. Put or patch if we want to update something on the server or merge some new data or piece of data and the server, and delete if we basically want to remove something from the server. So let's open up the Postman and let's go to workspaces. So as I said, we will not need import certificate API call because we are not using DNA Center in production environment. So I'm just going to directly skip the authentication API, and we need to get an authentication token in order to access DNA Center via API, right? So basically, authentication is necessary everywhere in network. So the same is true about DNA Center, but DNA Center uses a different method of authentication. So usually we just type in username and password in order to authenticate and use the device. But let's say HTTP-based platforms require a different approach for the best security practice. As you can see, the description of this API is API to obtain an access token, which remains valid for 1 hour. The token obtained using this API is required to be set as value to the X authentication token HTTP header for all API calls to Cisco DNA Center, right? Okay, so let's basically use this post method to get the API. So let's go to Postman and let's construct our first API call. My workspace. And in my workspace, I'm going to just change its name to, let's say, Cisco DNA, right? Cisco DNA. And I guess let's make our first request. New HTTP. Yes. So this is our first HTTP request that we'll make on Postman. As you can see, we have a tab dedicated to it. We can rename it. Can we? I think we can, but where? here we will use HTTP protocol. So here we just pick the protocol we want to use. We have other options, but we need HTTP because we are implementing REST API. And okay, let's leave it like this for now. And let's basically fill this section. As you can see, enter URL or paste text. So our URL consists of the base URL, which is basically this part. This is the base URL. I'm gonna paste it onto here. And the API call itself, which is here. And I'm copying the second part, right? It seems that I have some issues. Okay, paste. Cool. So now we have a URL, a fully qualified URL, to begin using HTTP methods to interact with the Cisco DNA Center. And basically, this is the protocol, HTTPS. So HTTP is the unsecure version, which is port 80, and HTTPS applies TLS to secure data transmission. And then we have the basic syntax of HTTPS. And after we include the host name, so this is the host name. So we can put FQDN here, meaning fully qualified domain name, as we did in our example. But you could also put an IP address, a management IP address or virtual IP address, which you use to access your platform. Then we have DNA, meaning this is DNA platform. It's not like any other Cisco platform. And then we have basically this part, which is a URI to retrieve authentication token. So as you can see in the documentation, we have, they indicate that we have to use a post request to get an authentication in the part of header. So it has to, so we'll use a post request against DNA Center, and it will return us the header, and that particular header of HTTP protocol will consist the token, the access token that we are looking for. So let's just do that. I'm gonna, but before also we have to indicate credentials, because we have these credentials, right? And this, when you log in from the GUI, you have to put them in the same manner. You have to also put these particular credentials on API call. So to do this, we go to header section, right? In header section, we can edit anything as we want. But for the sake of simplicity, Postman has this authorization section, which primarily focuses on that. So all we have to do is just select basic authentication, and we put the username and password. So the username, I'm just gonna copy paste it, right? That's the username, and this is the password. Okay. Use variables instead to keep sensitive as secure. We could use variables, but we don't really need them now. I'm gonna send a post request, and let's see what happens. Okay, status. So if you want to see the result of your request, you have to watch at status, right? 404 not found. So this is very popular HTTP response codes, and it indicates that the resource, this particular resource that I'm searching for, is not found, meaning it doesn't exist. Or maybe it does exist, but it's just not on the server that we're looking for. And the reason why I got this error is because I have sent a wrong request to the HTTP, to our DNA Center platform, because based on documentation, they said, if you want to fetch authentication token, you have to send a post request. So let's just fix that. I'm going to change the HTTP verb from get to post, and I'm going to retry sending it. And as you can see, now it works. Now we have 200 OK status codes, which is a standard response for successful HTTP requests. And we have a body of request, which consists of token. So in some platforms, this token is part of a header, right? It comes here. We have, for example, token section as a key, and we have value of token right on the right part. But for DNA Center, we are getting it as part of the request body, right? So this is the token that we'll use to authenticate with DNA Center from now on, right? Now we have to take this token. I'm gonna copy it, and I'm going to include it here as a value, because that's what our API documentation instructs us to do. The token obtained using this API, this particular token, which we just obtained, is required to be set as value to the XAuth token HTTP header. So this is going to be our key. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it right here. So there you go. Now we have a token which will be active for 1 hour, and we use this token to authenticate our further API calls with DNA Center. So let's continue. Now we have a token. We have successfully completed the first API call ever. And as you can see, the response was 200, meaning everything is great. And here, by the way, this DNA Center API documentation is very, very cool because it does provide you the ability to convert the API calls to curl. So you have a curl format of the exactly same thing you just did now, and you have a Python request format. You can basically copy this and start using Python and building more and more API calls based on that. And you have also Node.js requests. So if you are using Node.js for API development purposes, you can also get that. That's very, very convenient, and I highly encourage you to use it, to practice. We'll use Python. We can also test curl for the sake of simplicity, and let's test curl with other requests. So since we already have an authentication token, let's continue and get some information about devices. Devices located on DNA Center, integrated to DNA Center, right? So let's see. So we have this API call, which is get device list, right? As the name implies, it returns a list of network devices based on filter criteria such as management IP, MAC address, hostname, etc. So let's just try to do that. That's a GET request. We're copying this part again, which is the URI to identify the resource on the DNA Center platform. And I am going to create a new request. And I will paste it right here. So this is the second part. We also have to paste the base URL. So we have a fully qualified URL. There you go. And we also have to put the same headers because we already have a token, and we'll use this token to authenticate. So I'm just going to copy paste the value. And let's try and see if we can fetch the list of devices from DNA Center using just token. I haven't done the authorization part. I don't know if we really should, but because we now have a token, let's just try to send it now and let's see what happens. It works. As you can see, we don't need to indicate the credentials of the DevNet user and this password anymore because we already have a token that we fetched from this post request. And by using this token, we can make a lot of subsequent API calls, right? And as you can see, we have a request body again with a response about the device list information. So this is a JSON format, right? This is a JSON format, and there's a lot of data here. Okay, so that's it. I think that's enough for Postman. As you can see, it's very simple. All you have to do, again, you open up your DNA Center. If you have it on your production or if it's a sandbox web environment, whatever, you're opening up this main page. You are going to API, to help section, and you're finding API reference. And by the way, this procedure applies to any Cisco platform, right? You open up the GUI, you find the help section, you are trying to get a link which will redirect you to API guides, API documentation, API reference, whatever, any type of official statement about APIs for this particular platform. And then it will direct you to this page where you have information about APIs. You will pick your particular API version, and then you will basically explore the documentation. And documentations for Cisco platforms are very convenient because they provide the examples and descriptions about each API call. And you also have in DNA Center section, in DNA Center case, particularly you have these particular templates that are already built, and you can use these templates to already construct your script because the primary part of it is already constructed. You have to just utilize them as per your desire. So let's actually try to do a curl one now, right? We did a Postman. We used a Postman, which is an open source tool, a graphical user interface tool that allows you to easily test and interact with APIs. But let's actually do it with curl now. So curl is basically a command line utility for Linux systems to test APIs from command line, I guess. So I'm going to open up my Windows subsystem of Linux, WSL for on Windows. And let me first check if I have curl installed. I'm going to issue curl version commands. Yes, we can see that we have curl with this version, 781. And now let's use this particular template to make a call. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it right here. And I'm going to change some things to be able to do the call. So we have to get the URL. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it right over here. Okay, I have it. That's cool. What else I need? So as you can see, curl-l request, meaning the verb we're sending is get. We're getting, we're retrieving data from the DNA center. We have indicated the URL. We have indicated the header. So content type, application JSON, and accept application JSON basically means that how we want to get this data or send this data, right? So basically, we have some options with data formats. We can use XML or JSON or maybe any other format. But in the case of DNA Center, by default, we're using JSON. And to specify that I will send my request or request body or payload on JSON format, I'm specifying that the content type, meaning my payload, will be JSON formatted. And I want you, DNA Center, to send me your response also, as you can see, I'm accepting only in JSON format. So the entire transaction happens in JSON data format. The data will be enclosed in square brackets, not square brackets, but I forgot the name of those brackets. So we had square brackets and we also had curly brackets. JSON uses curly and square brackets to construct an object. So yeah, that's it. But we also have to indicate another header because we have, in our particular case, we already have a, oh no, I have accidentally did the wrong request. Okay, so another header, we have an authentication token, right? And we have to specify that token. So I'm going to say this part, I have to just copy and paste, I guess. So I'm copying that. And we're pasting the huge token we have. I'm going to use it. Let's see if it works. That's too much, but it is how it is, I guess. So should I actually put it in brackets? I don't really know that part. Should I? Or I shouldn't? Maybe no. So let's try. It does a certificate problem. We don't need a certificate, so let me just try to put -k option to bypass certificate. Yes, it works. As you can see, we get the data. Yeah, it doesn't look very nice because it's not so human readable, but that's basically the data and it's here. So the curl request works. All we have to do is that I'm going to just clean the screen. Give me some time to clean the screen. Okay. Yeah, so this is the request that we have to send. We have to specify -key to bypass the SSL certificate check, and we basically send a GET request to this particular resource URL, and we specify headers, which content we want, in which data format. In this case, it's application JSON, and we also specify the authentication token, right? And then we send a request, and there we go. Curl also works. So if you need to test your API from command line interface, you can always use free and open source built-in curl tool. And the last method we'll use today for that is basically Python. And as you can see from our API documentation, we already have a built template for Python request. I'm going to copy it. And I have this Visual Studio opened here. You can use any text editor as you want. And I will create a new file. And I will call it, so basically, let's actually create a new folder first. And in this folder, I'm going to say, maybe just DNA Center. And inside this folder, I'm going to create a new file, which it will be device list, let's say, device list.py, meaning it's a Python file. And I'm going to paste the code here, as you can see. The requests library, where you're going to use the request library. Request library is a special library which is used to interact with APIs from a Python source code. Basically, we're using Python as the API client, and then we specify the URL. So in our case, it's going to be this particular URL we have for device list. I'm going to basically copy that, and I'm going to paste it over here, right? There you go, that's our URL. We don't have any payload because we're not editing any kind of data. We're getting data, so we don't need to send any payload. We send payload when we want to modify the state of the object. So if we would love to add a new network device to the device list, we could use this particular payload and add some new object here so it gets added. And we would use another request, not get, obviously. We would use post or put or patch. So as you can see, the headers, as I've mentioned before at the curl, we are sending data in JSON format, and we are expecting to accept the data in JSON format from the API server. Then we have a response variable, which consists of a requests module, and we use the request method to send a GET request to the URL enclosed in this variable. There you go. So basically our network device list. And in headers variable, we indicate the headers that we're going to use, another headers variable. And in data, we're going to use payload, meaning we're not sending anything for now. And the response variable will consist of the entire response. And to get exactly the body of the request, we will use a text output, and basically we'll encode it with UTF-8 so it's human readable, I guess. So let's just run this and let's see if it works. I'm running a Python script. We're still waiting. It doesn't work. And guess why it doesn't work? Because we haven't indicated another header which we used in our curl request, and this is the access token. So let's just do that. I'm gonna copy that. And no, it's not gonna work, no. Okay, and we have to put here the token. Putting it over here. It's pretty long. We could save it in variable in another file, but this is just an example, so I don't really mind having this here. So let's try now. And also there's another thing that I wanted to put to disable SSL warnings, because we're not in production environment, so I don't really need to see these warnings. Disable SSL warnings. And if I'm not mistaken, it was so from requests, we had request, or it was URL lib. No, it was request, I guess. Request URL. No, I forgot it. So let me just check it real quick. Disable SSL warning Python. Maybe I should say just requests. Yeah, it's too much. So if we go back, disable requests, right? Maybe I can see the image real quick in the script. There must be a script where they do it. Not particularly. Okay, I think it was in packages. Yes, packages. URL lib. 3 disable. I don't know why I can't see the packages though. Warnings. I don't understand why it doesn't work. Okay, let's retry running the script. Was the token specified now? It should work. Oh, it doesn't understand this part. I don't know why it should, but for some, okay, let's just forget about that for now. Let's just comment it out. And I'm gonna retry running the script just to make sure it works. I don't mind the warning. No, it still doesn't work. Ah, of course, because I forgot one thing here. We have to put the verify parameter and we say false. So you don't have to verify SSL certificates. There you go. That's how you do it. I'm going to rerun the script. This time it should work. Yes, this time it works. As you can see, we have everything here. We have entire data. So let's try to make it more human readable. Let's first see what type of data, what data type we're working with. So I'm going to say print type, and of this response text, right? What is it precisely? So let's just do that. That's a string. So let's import JSON and load it to a JSON file, right? I'm going to import JSON. Okay, so we're creating a new data object. We don't need this anymore. So let's say JSON object is object, basically JSON loads. So if we want to turn string into a dictionary, meaning into a native Python object, we have to use the loads option, because we're loading it to a Python, because it's non-native to Python. And I'm going to specify the response .text, the text, and then you have to print the JSON object. Let's see how it works now. Okay, it does work. Let's verify that it's a dictionary. It should transition to dictionary. So let's just verify that. I'm going to save it, rerun it. This time we should see the data type, nothing else. Yes, this is a dictionary, as you can see here. Perfect. And now we can, since we have a JSON object, we can interact with it. But before, let me just use the indent parameter of JSON to make it more human readable. So I can say JSON indent for. Let's see if it works. I'm not sure about the syntax, but okay. Yeah, there is okay, my mistake is in syntax. Okay. So maybe we basically can import prettyprint. So prettyprint can make it more human readable from pprint. Import pprint. And let's prettyprint that JSON object. I'm going to delete everything else. Let's see. Yes, it works. So we have this data, as you can see. This is a huge data, right? There's a lot of information in here. And how do we access a specific part? Let's say I want to access, let's see what we have here. We have MAC address, for example. We have management IP. Let's say we want to access the management IP address. We want to get only the IP address of this particular device. We don't need anything else here, right? First of all, we have to see the output and specify which device are we talking about. This is host name. As you can see, switch 1. So I want the IP address of switch 1, right? Management IP address. So I think we can basically specify the key. So as you can see, the first key is response. And this is the value of it, everything. This is the key. It's the dictionary data model, data type, sorry. And the data type, this dictionary's key is response. And the value is an entire list, because we start with this. This is a Python list. And in this list, we'll access the first element of this list. And in the first element of this list, we have to access the management interface, maybe, right? But how about the second one, though? Do we have another list for the second device? That's what I don't understand. Let me see where this list ends. Does it? No, it doesn't end here. It goes, I think it goes until the end. I don't really see where it does end. So probably we'll just have a list consisting of every single device, and then let's see. Let's first try to get the output of response key and its first element in the list. I'm gonna do that. Let's run the script again. Okay, now we have the output, which still consists of multiple host names, I guess, or no? No, we just have one. So yeah, each element in the list is a device. Right, so if we put 1 here, we should get information about the switch 2, I think, or the second device. So let's just try that. Let's see if we have a hostname information here. Yes, there we go, switch 2. Okay, so we need the management IP address of the first one, and as you can see in the list, we can access by basically indicating the key of it. And let me just do that. There you go. I'm going to save my script and rerun my script. So now I should get just an IP address of the first device, which is switch 1. And let's see if it works. Yes, It works just fine. As you can see, now we've fetched just the necessary IP address that we needed before. And yeah, that's how you work with JSON data. So basically, that's it for today, I guess. In this video, we launched a developer sandbox, developer.cisco.com sandbox web for Cisco DNA Center platform. And then we found the official API documentation for Cisco DNA Center. And using this API documentation, as a reference, we made 2 API calls to the DNA Center platform. We used Postman as the first tool to interact with APIs. Postman is very simple and beginner friendly. So if you are really struggling with APIs and with constructing scripts on Python, start with Postman. All you have to do is just go to your workspace, create some new requests, and put the URL in this section and use the appropriate HTTP verb in order to make a request based on the Cisco DNA Center documentation. And then we send another request, a GET request, to fetch a list of network devices available on Cisco DNA Center platform. Then we use the curl as a second tool to interact with REST APIs. Curl is a command line utility that you can use to test APIs from your Linux command line. And lastly, using Python, we constructed a script which basically retrieves the network device list, and then we converted the output, the string output of this particular response variable, to a JSON file, meaning we loaded it to our Python as a dictionary, and after it became a JSON object, we accessed its elements by basically specifying keys. So I think that's it for today. I hope this video was informative and it will motivate you to get started with REST APIs using sandboxes and practicing. Thank you for watching. Make sure to follow us on our Instagram page, SDNBit. You can also subscribe to this YouTube channel. And in the next video, probably we can talk about SD-WAN APIs or Meraki. We'll see. Thank you for watching. Have a nice day.